Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. I got to admit that sometimes I have some financial quirks that don't make any sense, but they work for me. And I watch Dave Ramsey a lot. I don't necessarily agree 100% with everything he says. Certainly, we disagree on various investments. He would think I'm crazy for what I invest in. But one thing that I agree and disagree with him is that every time somebody calls, and he always asks people to adjust their tax returns so that they're not getting a big refund in April. And it's kind of funny. In theory, I would agree with him, but in practice, it doesn't work out that way. Let me give you a couple of examples. I'm just about to file last year's taxes, actually. I filed an extension. What had happened is that I spent so much time living out of my car that I didn't receive one of my W 2s. And I was upset about that job that I was at, and I kept putting off calling my former employer to get the W 2 because it's just so much angst around my leaving that job. And so I filed an extension thinking I'll get around to it. And then other things happened in my life. Back in May, my car died. Went shopping for a car. And then I had the trip to Taiwan. And then I came home and I ran into a change in plans with my job. Long story short, I kept putting off asking for the W 2 until I couldn't anymore. And earlier this week, I bit the bullet and asked for it. And so when I opened the envelope, I realized I had a lot more taxes withheld than I thought I did. And so that was nice to see because I'm going to get a good refund. Now, what's really nice is that China is starting to relax their export limitations on crystalline gold, as I like to call it. And I hope when I get my refund, I can order another 50 to 100 kilograms of crystalline gold. Unfortunately, the only sellers I saw would only sell 1,000 kilograms at once, and I don't quite have the space for that in one go. Plus, I don't want to tie up all of my capital, right? And I don't have a lot of space either. And so that was really nice to see. Now, had I not gotten a refund, had I gotten an extra $20 in my check every week, I have a hard time believing all of those extra $10, $20 in my checks would coagulate into 100 kilograms of the crystalline gold bar. I really have a hard time believing that. And would it be better off if I got an extra 10, $20 every check and put it in a high yield savings account? Of course it would be. But it might not play out like that in reality, right? Now, in a previous life, I was working at a technology startup. I was making considerably more. It's okay. I make more in human capital, in just the capital of my life now, instead of a check, right? But I was so busy that 2 years in a row I didn't file my tax returns. Now it's okay because I'm getting a refund. But for 2 years in a row, that third year I finally filed. And so I got three tax refunds in one go. And I was able to take that money and buy a 1,000 ounce poor man gold bar, and I still have it. Right? Had I gotten an extra whatever amount per week in my check, it's hard to believe that I would have taken all of those extra amounts and saved up to buy that 1,000 ounce bar of poor man's gold. It's just hard to believe that's how it would have played out, right? And another interesting quirk: when I was living in Rochester, New York has this program where you can, when you buy soda or bottled water, you can return it for a deposit on your bottle. And I used to collect all those cans and bottles around, and so I would take them to, you would take them to a grocery store to put them into a vending machine, and it would give you a refund. But I quickly discovered that it was way better for me to save up my cans and bottles until I got a decent amount every time. I would put them into the machine. If I would get $2, $3, $4, those few dollars have a tendency to just dissolve in my budget. If I got $100 at one time, I have a tendency to take that $100 and buy some poor man's gold, or some actual gold, or maybe a rare coin, right? And actually, and to this day, I would still have all of that, right? If I got two, three, $4 at one time, the money tends to just dissolve into your daily budget. I know it sounds weird. Ideally, you would collect it as you go, so you don't have so much trash in your house, right? But the reality, it never seems to match the ideal case, right? That gets me back to investing in the poor man's gold or the crystalline gold. Now, have I always bought these metals at the right time? No. But what I do know is once I buy them, I tend to hold on to them, right? Cash will tend to dissolve a hole in my pocket for some reason. And so even when I buy at the wrong time, I bought plenty of poor man's gold when it was $50 an ounce in 2011, which is the equivalent of like 100 today. But you know what? I still have that stuff. There were plenty of there was plenty of shit that I wasted my money on in 2011. I can't even remember wasting it. I certainly don't have any benefit of that to this day, right? This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.